Hello everyone, my name is Quentin Rossetto. I'm a VFX artist and I've been working on movies and TV shows such as that CGI movie you love so much. Today on Maya Autodesk 2018 we're gonna do a shitty tutorial together. So let's get started. First, let's check our parameters. Make sure that you're in playback speed, play every frame, and that the max playback speed is 24 FPS times 1, or whatever other FPS you have. We're gonna create an Nparticles emitter. And let's get into it right away. First, on the emitter, I'm gonna change the aspect to volume, change the rate to 1000, and change the shape to a cylinder. I'm gonna move it up and reduce it in the y-axis. Up. Let's play it. Alright, we have particles emitting. That's great. But the particles fall forever. So let's go into the nucleus, attribute editor. We're gonna activate use plane and increase the friction a bit. Alright, our particles stay on the ground. While we're here, we might as well increase the substeps a bit, the max collision iteration, and change the scale attribute of our scene. By default, one case is equal to 1 meters. So if we want to simulate something smaller, we might as well reduce the space scale. Let's put 0.1. Now our particle falls way faster. Great. I'm gonna go to the Nparticle 1 now. And in Nparticle shape 1, we're gonna change some value. First, the particle size. Let's drop it to 0.1 and let's add some radius randomize in the radius scale. Let's select randomize ID and put something like 0.5. Alright, the problem is we can't see our particles because they're just shown as point right now. What we want is under shading, switch the particle render type from point to sphere. And now we can see the radius. What we can also see is that although the particles collide with the ground, they don't collide with each other. So let's go to collision and check self-collide. Now our particles collide with each other. We're gonna increase the friction to 0.6 and the stickiness to 1. While we're here as well, we're going to reduce the self-collide with scale so that the particle penetrate into each other a little bit. Great. Next, we're going to create a constraint to force the particles to stick together. Let's select our Nparticle, then in the FX tab, and constraint component to component. This will create connection between our particles. Constraint. More so. I'm gonna go to my dynamic constraint and change the connection method from nearest pair to within max distance and increase the max distance radius to 0.5. Let's check our simulation. Alright, we're starting to do something shitty. That's great. What can we do to improve a little bit the look? Well, first I'm gonna go into Nparticle 1 and in my Nparticle shape find the shading color tab. And we're going to change the color in the ramp. Let's find some nice brownish and maybe something a little bit more clear, yellow, and a third color that's more into the greenish. But you can see no colors change. Well, all the particles have the same color, so let's change the color input to randomized idea and add some randomize. Alright, this looks pretty good, maybe not brown enough. Let's change that. I'd like to have a bit more brownish in my shop scene. There we go, that's better. I'm gonna reduce the size of my emitter a bit more, and in the volume speed attribute I'm gonna put a negative force in the away from axis, so that when particles appear they're pushed one onto another near the center of my emitter. Let's press play. Great. What can we do else? We could animate a little bit the emitter so that it doesn't stay at the same position. First, we're gonna create a curve, bring the curve up, and modify its control vertex a bit so that it's not as perfect as a circle. Alright, now I'm gonna select my emitter, select my curve, and under animation, constraint, I'm gonna create a motion path attached to motion path. My emitter is now attached to the curve, and it's gonna do one full circle within the time of my timeline, so from 0 to 120. Cool, that brings some movement to it. We can even activate bank and reduce the scale so that our emitter turn a little bit. It's gonna bring some nice details. And to finish, I'm gonna create some keys on my rate on my emitter. First, I'm gonna deactivate my particles. Up in Nparticle shape, I'm gonna uncheck enable. And on my emitter, I'm gonna put some keys. So let's start at 0, go up to 600, then 1000. Let's drop down to 300, for example. Stay at 300, maybe drop almost 200, and then back to 1000, and back to 0. Alright, let's reactivate our particles and see what we have. That's great. I'm pretty happy with the look it has. What can I do to improve it? Maybe I'm gonna go into my dynamic constraint and I'm gonna increase the strength of the constraint, as well as reduce the glue strength to allow my constraint to break under stress. I'm also going to increase on my nucleus under ground plane the ground stickiness, plane stickiness, so that my particles stay stuck to it once they fall. And I'm gonna reduce even more my emitter to force them to appear real close to one another. Great. Finally, under Nparticles, Nparticle shape, I'm gonna change a few parameters under dynamic properties. I'm gonna add a little bit of damp and increase the drag a little bit. Alright. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna be ready to make the mesh. First, I'm gonna select my Nparticles and go under Modify, Convert, Nparticles to Polygon. If you don't see anything in your scene, that might be normal. We'll have to change some parameter under Nparticle shape and output mesh. Start by reducing the threshold. There we go. Here is our mesh. We're going to change the mesh method to quad mesh, and I'm going to activate the view so that I can see my edges. And I'm going to reduce the mesh triangle size to 0.25 and increase the smoothing iteration 24, maybe a little bit smaller, 0.2. How does it look? That's nice. That's nice. Let's reduce slightly more the mesh triangle size, and I'm going to increase the threshold, reduce the threshold a tad. There we go. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's good. If you want to see your particle again, you can see that they're not visible anymore. That's because when you converted your Nparticles to a mesh, it switched under Nparticle shape, object display, it activated intermediate object. You can uncheck this to bring your particle back and to be able to do a cache if you so choose to do. I'm going to go under FX and cache, create new cache and object, and I'm going to replace the one I already have. Boo, 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 boo. It's meshing and it's caching very well. Great. I'm gonna pause there. Under my Nparticle, there is something I forgot to do. I'm gonna render the mesh, but I'd like to get the colors of my particle transferred to the mesh. So, under Output Mesh, I'm gonna check Color per Vertex. And under my Polysurface, the mesh, polysurface shape, under the Arnold tab, I'm gonna check Export Vertex Color. And now I'm gonna redo my mesh, my cache, sorry. Replace existing. Right, that looks very good. We're doing a good job there. It's very, very good. Okay, I'm gonna say that's enough. I'm gonna stop there. Now I'm gonna hide my particles and do some set dressing a little bit. I'm gonna create a plane that I'm gonna call ground. Increase its size. I'm gonna go under Arnold light, create a skydome light and reduce its intensity to 0.1. And under Arnold light, I'm gonna create an area light. Select panel look through selected, and I'm gonna place my area light behind my mesh to create a nice rim light. While I'm here, I'm gonna increase the intensity to 10, the exposure to 10, put some color temperature, something more bluish, and reduce the spread so I have something more similar to a spotlight. Okay, panel perspective, persp. I'm gonna assign on my mesh maybe I can add more subdivision to my mesh. Output mesh, I'm gonna smooth it more and reduce a little bit more the mesh. Okay, I'm gonna say nah, 2 was good enough. What I can do with that mesh is assign a nice tender surface, and I'm gonna check my first render. Alright, this light is way too strong. Let's reduce the exposure to 5. That's good. And increase the intensity a bit. Alright. I'm not really happy with the mesh. It's too small. I'd like it to be a bit blobbier. So I'm gonna select my output mesh and increase the blobby radius scale to 0.3, something like this. Okay. And the threshold can come down a little bit more, even all the way down while we're at it. Alright, that's gonna be good enough. But we don't see the color of our particles. That's because we're gonna have to go into the hypershade and tell Arnold to pick up the color. So let me see my eye standard surface. It's here. I'm gonna go and add I'm gonna type data and find the A user data color. Alright, and I'm gonna connect it to the subsurface color. But we need a name for the attribute so that Arnold knows what color to pick up. Well, we can find the name of our vertex color by selecting our polysurface mesh and go into modeling, mesh display, color set editor, and we can see that the color set is called color PV. So let's go into our AI user data and type in color PV. Okay, so that was our mesh. I'm gonna go another frame and I'm gonna update my render. Well, I still don't have my color, so let's check this again. Our mesh has the export vertex color activated. Our Nparticles has the color per vertex activated as well, and it's not working. Let's try again. Well, sometimes this happens, so we have to try to remove our mesh altogether and recreate it again, and modify, convert Nparticles to polygon, and in my surface shape I'm gonna activate export vertex color under the Arnold tab. Let's open a new render, and we still don't have the color coming up. That's because it's a very efficient system. No color, export vertex color, no color. Also, maybe it's because I have my in my shader I probably have I haven't even assigned my material, so a standard surface. And now let's update. Still nothing. Let's bring the base to 0, and we still have no poop color. That's quite annoying. Let's check our eye standard surface. Why do we have 2? It's connected to color PV, and let's rename it AI poop so that we know better what we're doing. Oh, I didn't give him the correct material. Assign existing material AI poop. Let's check the render and hope it goes well. No, it doesn't. Because it's a shitty tutorial and that's what I'm doing. So let's try to check again. Nparticles shape. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm gonna delete my cache. Maybe that's what's making it bug. Object display intermediate object and cache, delete cache. Let's go back to the first frame. Let's simulate a bit and see what we have here. And not you. Still no color. Even though I can select the mesh, see that I have a color set and that my mesh has export vertex color selected and the name is color PV, and I've entered into my shader under subsurface color. I can see it here. Well, it's very sensible to uppercase and lowercase, so that might be why. Color PV. Let's create the AI user data color again. Color PV and connect it. Oh, let's start with a base color. We'll see for SSS afterwards. Okay. Where is it? Still nothing. That's a very shitty tutorial. Up. Let's move a few frames and try again. Yes! There we go. We have the color. So if you have the same problem as I did, not having the color coming up, just redo what you've been doing over and over again until it works, because it's a very stable system. We have our color, but the problem is it's not translucent enough. So into our shader, we're gonna take the AI user data color and connect it to the subsurface color. In my material, I'm gonna bring the base weight to 0, increase the subsurface weight to 1, and we're gonna see what we have. Alright, it might be a bit too translucent. So to check for the translucency, it's easier to put a very visible color in the radius color and see by reducing the scale if we can improve the look. I'm gonna go to 0.25. Yeah, that's good. It's translucent, but not too much. I'm gonna change this color to a nice green yellow, yellowish more so. Alright. I'm pretty happy with this poop. You can even, if you choose so, to do a less detailed mesh might look better. Yes, there we go. I'm gonna activate in my parameters the motion blur. I'm gonna go a few more frames. Alright. And I'm gonna hit render. That's very good. Well, we've learned how to make poop with Maya 2018. I hope this tutorial will be helpful for your work. I'm Quentin Rossetto, and thank you for your attention. Bye.